Alright, so before we get started coding any PHP, we're going to have to set up our environment. And there's a lot of different choices that we can use to run PHP on a local machine. Alright, you could use some kind of server if you have a cPanel server or something like that, some kind of service that you pay for, or a dedicated server, that's fine. But if you don't have that and you don't want to get that, you just want to build on your local machine, then you have a few choices. Alright, so the first one we have is called XAMPP or XAMPP. And this, like the other programs I'm going to show you, come with an Apache server that'll run locally on your machine as a service, along with MySQL, PHP, Perl, and a couple other things as well, things like email servers, FTP servers. Alright, and this one I've actually used for the past 6 or 7 years. We won't be using it in this series. I'm actually going to use something called AMPS, which we'll get to in a second, but this is definitely a good choice if you want to try it out. It's available for Windows, Linux, and Mac. The next one is called MAMP, and there's also a MAMP Pro, and this is what a lot of the people in the Mac community are using, a lot of the OS X developers that are developing PHP. I've used it a couple times and it seemed alright, and I didn't have any issues with it. So if you're on a Mac, then you may want to look into that. There's also WAMP server, or WAMP, which is basically the same thing as XAMPP or XAMPP, in my opinion. I've used it a couple times, and you know, all these programs are pretty similar as far as what they offer and how they perform. So you may want to look into that. The one that we're going to be using is called AMPS, and I like this one because it gives you a panel kind of like as if you had a hosting account. You can add domains, you can add FTP accounts. It's kind of like having hosting right on your local machine. All right, so that's what we're going to be using. We're going to go ahead and go to Downloads. All right, and you can see it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. If we look at the PHP versions, you can actually switch between anywhere from PHP 5.3 up to 7.0.2. Alright, so you can just change that on the fly. Perl, Python, it even comes with MongoDB, which we're not going to get into, but it's a good thing to have available. Alright, and then it also has this Softasulos, I think that's how you say it, and what that is, it's a script installer, and it gives you, I think it's around 380 different scripts, applications that you can install in just a couple clicks, things like Joomla, WordPress. So that's another good thing about it. So we're going to go ahead and click this download button here. I'm using Windows 8, 64-bit. And this file is 182 megabytes, so it may take a couple minutes to download. So once it's done, I will be back. Alright, so that's done downloading. We have our file. I'm going to go ahead and open it. And we're going to click Run. Alright, I'm going to accept that. Alright, so this is going to be just like any other Windows installer. We're just going to go through it real quick. Okay, this shows you some of the stuff, some of the scripts that are available after you install it. We're going to choose the default directories, install, and this could take a minute or so. Alright, so that took about 2, maybe 3 minutes to install. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to uncheck this launch amps, and click finish. Alright, and the reason that I didn't launch it is because we want to launch it as administrator. Alright, so if we right click and go to run as administrator. Alright, so we're going to get this alert. We're going to allow access through our firewall. And then we have this little panel here. Okay, so this is so we can easily start, stop, and restart Apache and MySQL, okay, which are both running right now. Let me allow. Okay, and then on the side here we have some tabs. our Apache tab, we can access the configuration file, which I believe is the httpd.conf file. Alright, and this is where you can mess with the Apache extensions, virtual hosts, things like that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just not touch that. Error log files, you can restore the configuration if you mess something up. And we have these options for pretty much everything. MySQL, PHP, this is where we can edit the PHP ini file, and then some other things, FTP, MongoDB. Alright, so that's the little panel. Now if we, oops, I don't want to do that. If we go down here, you can see that we get this little icon. If we right click that, we have an admin, AMPS admin link we can go to, and that should open up in the browser. Alright, now there's not really much here that we need to do. I just want to show you that it's available. Alright, so we have all of our info down here, the version of PHP that's running, the latest version of AMPS, and then if we go to settings, there's a lot of different settings here for paths and things like that, theme colors, and then a bunch of end user settings that I'm not going to really mess with. Software, this is where you can see exactly what's available as far as the scripts you can install, WordPress, Joomla. We have all different kinds of different types of software. Alright, updates, that's not really important to us. You can see the current and the latest versions. Installations, we'll just show you what kind of installations you have on your server. Alright, now let's close that up, and I'm going to close all these up. And then down in that icon there's also this AMPS home. Alright, so that's the main area. That's basically our control panel. Alright, and if you look at it, if you've ever had a cPanel account, it looks pretty similar. It has your domain managers, your database tools. You can see we have PHP MyAdmin. We can add a database. We have FTP accounts, PHP, our configurations. It's very similar to a cPanel. All right, it's a lot more slimmed down, but it gives you the same kind of control. Now there's a couple things I want to do. One thing, I want to add a domain. All right, so I'm going to click that. And this domain is going to basically just be local. We're not hosting a website on the internet or anything like that. So you can put whatever you want here. I'm just going to put in PHP dev. Alright, actually, you know what? I'll do php.dev. Okay, and then here we have the option to add it to our host file. So what we can do is we can map this domain to our local host. Alright, now this says access denied. You don't have permission to edit the host file, but since we opened it as an administrator, we should still be able to let it add it itself. Alright, if it doesn't, then we can just manually add it. So let's go ahead and click add domain. Alright, so okay, and we can go to the manage page. You can see we have our php.dev. We can actually look at the host file contents here, and you can see it was added. So you can see it's going to our loopback address, our local host. And now if I go to php.dev, it's going to give us our just a directory, empty directory, because we don't have anything there yet. Alright, now to get to this, we need to go to our AMPS folder, which is C drive, program files, AMPS, and right here you'll see we have a www folder. This is our web server. What I'm going to do is send this to the desktop, which will give us a shortcut. And if I open that up, we have php.dev. Alright, and in here we'll create a new folder. I'm sorry, not a folder, a file. And we'll call this index.php. And let's open that up. I'm going to be using Sublime Text as my editor, but feel free to use whatever you like. Okay, so here's our PHP file. Now just to test things out, we're just going to put in some PHP tags here. And let's do echo and we'll just say it works. So if it parses, then we know that everything's okay. Alright, so we're getting it works, and you can see it's not showing the PHP tags, it's actually just outputting whatever we echo out, which is what we want. So we know that that's working. Alright, the next thing I want to do is I want to just change the password for our MySQL. Alright, so if we go to configure and then security center, and let's see, we want this right here, change MySQL root password. And the old password you can see here is MySQL. And I'm just going to change that. Okay, change password, and the username is going to be root. Alright, so that's that. Now we'll be able to use MySQL in the future. And that's really it. That's really all we need to do. And you can see on the side here we have all the stuff that's available to install. We're not going to get into any of that, any kind of CMS or anything. We're learning straight PHP. So for now we're all set. We're all set to start developing and start showing you some examples. Alright, so we'll start doing that in the next video.